It's not possible to explain to 8-year child what blockchain is. However, let's try to do so.
2EDU. Podcast o szkoleniach, prezentacjach i technologiach wspierających rozwój. Jeśli zależy Ci na efektywności szkoleń i interesują Cię nowinki techniczne, ten podcast jest właśnie dla Ciebie.
Okay, welcome to a new episode of e-learning podcast. Today we have our guest that will tell us a little bit more about blockchain and blockchain in education, as I promised already on the website. So Alex, we know each other very well, but if you can introduce yourself to all the listeners.
First of all, thank you for invitation, and it's a quite interesting topic. As for me, I'm an information security professional, currently working in ABB. And actually, blockchain is one of my hobbies and areas of personal interest. I'm researching this topic for like 5 years now, and taking it from both work perspective in terms of security, and in terms of general knowledge as well, including investments.
Okay, so when I think about blockchain, I've heard it. First, I've heard of Bitcoin, and I think I've heard about it because because its growth and because its potential, and then I've heard about cryptocurrencies, and then when I started digging, then I found blockchain. And if you can tell people, like in the simplest possible way, what the blockchain is, how would you explain blockchain to a child?
It's a very interesting question. And, one of the most well-known people in blockchain community, who is Vitalik Buterin. He is an inventor of Ethereum, the second well-known blockchain project. He says that the answer to this question is very simple. It's not possible to explain to 8-year child what blockchain is. However, let's try to do so. Anyway, so blockchain actually is technology behind the Bitcoin, and it's simply a way to store the same data in many locations simultaneously and ensure that this data is the same at all locations. So what is the idea behind is that like in previous years, we had these exercises with paper when important information which was collected to ensure that it is full, it was not changed, it is stored in a completely secure way. The paper separate sheets were sewed together and stamped and signed and put into the safe. Yes. So in blockchain, we have something similar. So each new piece of information which is stored on the blockchain, it is sewed electronically to the previous data, and it ensures that you cannot take it out. And you cannot change it anyway without destructing the whole database. But in addition to this measure, we have also this distributed storage. So previously we had like single place where papers are stored, but with the blockchain we have a possibility to store it in like thousands and millions places at the same time. And there is a mechanism in blockchain which allows to ensure that all copies are the same. And if one copy is corrupted, then it is automatically overwritten from other sources. So after all, we have some benefits out of it.
Okay, so it is like, from my perspective, is like I can imagine like from what you're saying is like that is like a train of data, and I'm attaching different carriages to this train. So whatever changes with my data, I'm attaching a new carriage, and the new carriage, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And at the same time, in all the train stations, there is the same carriage that is having its exact copy. Is it the right way of thinking around this?
Yeah, but you need to add that once the carriage is attached, it's melted to the previous one in a way that you cannot undo what you just added. And you can also on the blockchain you can add some new value for the previous data, but you need to know that all previous values for this piece of information are stored as well, and you have a full picture and a complete history of all changes being stored on the blockchain.
Okay, so the one way for me is using the blockchain is to store data with all its previous version from the very, very beginning.
Right.
So this is the tool that can prevent anyone from cheating on this data, right?
Sure, that's one of the benefits of blockchain. And among other benefits, we can say that in addition to cheating with the data itself, also cheating in terms of timestamp is not possible, because each amount of data has a timestamp attached. So if you graduated, for example, if you are coming to learning, if you were graduated in 2001, then it will be stored in 2001, and there is no way to post your diploma. So it's also a protection about the time when it appears.
Okay, so when I think about cheating, is of course that maybe it shouldn't be the direct connection, but when I think about cheating, it's somewhat connected to the learning in school and passing the exams. And so if we think about the benefits of the blockchain, a few of them that you have listed, can you please tell me what are the areas in which we can use blockchain, particularly in learning? And I know few of them, but I don't think that I'm realizing how widely it can be used. So can you please list the things that you think are the most interesting from the learning perspective?
First of all, I would say that identification of a student or a person is the main purpose for blockchains, more modern blockchain solutions. So previously we used a key, encryption key, to validate the person, but it has some disadvantages. And in case this technology is supported by blockchain, it enables you to ensure that the person in front of you is exactly the same person you expected him or her to be. So this is a main idea which can be used in learning. The second is that you can store complete list of educational activities for each citizen, starting from school and including some non-formal training activities. And all of them can be combined into one large educational profile with some additional data attached, like marks for each subject, numbers of hours being taken, and even results for interim testing could be included into it, not only the final, because we can definitely store much more data than it is allowed on the paper. So we can store much more than that and have a better understanding of history of this particular person, learning and experience. The second really educational idea is to have actually educational programs stored for each university, for each subject on blockchain, which allows first of all, to analyze the quality and see who is dealing better in some particular area. And secondly, it allows to compare curriculum from various educational institutions and grade them accordingly to each other. So you should not mess up with comparing with physics, which was taught in MIT and in some Polish university. On the blockchain, you will be able to have either this analysis even completed, either you will have curriculum to compare, and it will really simplify your job to analyze the quality and the scope of education of this particular person. As a third practical idea, it could be the protection of rights for research work. And once this work is being published, it will be entered into blockchain database and will help along with the timestamp, of course. So it will be easier to say who was the first who published a work on this particular research and who first was dealing with this kind of experiment. So it will be easier to distinguish and to resolve some conflict situations which happened with publications being done in different parts of the world. Also, we have a kind of an issue with source materials at the moment. Previously, we had references to books which are quite stable in terms of content, and books are available in the library for a long term. However, the further we are going with the usage of the internet, we have a number of links being included into research works. And the problem is that you cannot ensure that this link will be valid in 2 years. And moreover, you cannot be sure as well about the content which was provided via this link. So it could be changed without any notification or trace. And when the person comes to your research in 5 years, some of links will not be working and some of them will contain a completely different information. And that represents quite a complex problem. So in case of blockchain, and if you store an archive of internet materials on the blockchain, and your reference in your research work is pointing exactly at this archive, you can be sure that the information will stay the same and will be available in the future.
As I understand, there are so many ways of, let's say, securing your work, securing your private data, securing your history of learning, etc. So in whatever the case is, so if it's a learner, if it's a teacher, or if it's a lecturer, or the university itself, or the curriculum, you can use the blockchain in all of those areas, right? But are there any examples that you know, or the countries that you know, or the institutions that you know, except of, the cryptocurrencies? Are there any institutions or countries that are already using this approach? Can we just look for examples, or maybe do you know examples?
When it comes to identifications of citizens, Estonia has implemented the project to store identities on the blockchain, and it is currently the only country with so high level of coverage of its population in terms of electronic identification. And it allows them to step up and to implement some electronic voting, electronic governance in the country. As I said, it might be quite useful for education purposes as well. So in Estonia, the next step will be to create some database for the history of education for each person, and they can link it to existing identity blockchain solution. And by doing so, they will ensure that the cost of evaluation of educational profile is really low, and it will allow employer, for example, to check efficiently whether this person presenting valid documents like diploma and certificates or not. Another project for identification of people, which I know, is Civic. They have a kind of technology working, and they are trying to lead this market at the moment. If we are talking about education, pure education, I know there are some ongoing projects as well. They are on pilot stage, and For example, in Maltese, they are thinking to combine all universities' data into one blockchain for the purpose of storage and to prove the diploma validity. And there are many more projects, but we need to get more details about them. So as I said, most of them are really on a pilot stage. This is an emerging technology and it's not so widely spread at the moment. So as for working projects, that's probably it.
My last question here is where to go next? Where are the sources of information that we should use? Because I know there are hundreds of books, there are hundreds of posts, there are potentially, I don't even know if there are any podcasts about blockchain. Probably yes. But are there any sources of information or books that you would recommend to read in order to go next? Because we know a lot about this technology. We know a lot of theory around this. There are videos explaining, what it is, how it can use. There's lots of buzz about cryptocurrencies and how much you can earn easily on this. But looking for from purely e-learning or electronic learning or learning at a different level perspective, what's the content that you would recommend that is like a comprehensive overview of this approach?
Well, there is quite a great report which was created for European Commission. It was written by Oleksandr-pluzhnikov and Anthony Camilleri. The name is quite obvious and speaks for itself. Blockchain in Education. It was released in 2017. It's quite fresh and contains good overview, first of all, of blockchain technology and its possible use cases for education. So I would recommend it as a single source of information about blockchain and its particular use in learning. I believe that you will add a link to this report. What else? As you mentioned, for a general knowledge, I would recommend some YouTube videos. Just put blockchain into search and you will get plenty of them to get more details about the blockchain technology.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your attention. And hopefully we'll be able to speak about blockchain and any other emerging technologies that you are interested in soon.
Thank you very much.
2EDU. Podcast o szkoleniach, prezentacjach i technologiach wspierających rozwój.